Last Monday night, Charlie said, "Frank, can you come over about 8? I want to go on a walk." Whenever I was in Phoenix, we'd go on walks, long walks, with a bodyguard. This was the 4th time this summer I was in Phoenix with him to prepare for the college tour. He wanted to talk about 2 main subjects on our walk. The first was the resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth. So we talked a lot about the resurrection. And then one of the biggest burdens on Charlie's heart is the family.
You know, the last walk we went on, Megan, was Monday night. We went on this long walk, and there were 2 major issues that kept coming up that he wanted to be better at. He wanted to be better at explaining the evidence for the resurrection of Jesus. And the second issue we spent a lot of time on is he really wanted America and young people in America to get back to marriage and family. Last Monday, 2 days before he was murdered, Charlie and I went on one of our evening walks, always with a bodyguard right behind us. Now, that night, we walked for over an hour, and the top 2 issues he wanted to talk about the most were the resurrection of Jesus. And the other thing he wanted to talk about that night was how to convince young people of the importance of marriage and family.
So we'd be walking through the streets of Phoenix with a bodyguard, just talking about every possible topic that could come up on a college campus. And the 2 major subjects we talked about that Monday night, 2 weeks ago yesterday, was the resurrection of Jesus and marriage and the family.
Monday night, we went on one of our long walks through the streets of Phoenix with a bodyguard, and there were 2 subjects he really wanted to talk a lot about. One was the resurrection. The second subject he really wanted to convince people of is that marriage and the family is beautiful.
We'd be walking along the streets of Phoenix with a bodyguard trailing us. And the Monday night before this happened, so 2 days before, we're on this long walk, and Charlie wanted to talk about 2 major issues. Number 1, the resurrection, and number 2, marriage and family. The last walk we had was Monday night before the terrible Wednesday, and there's 2 things that was on his heart. One was, how do I convince these kids that the resurrection is true? And then the second thing on his heart, he wanted to teach America, particularly the younger generations, the beauty of marriage, family, and having kids.
In the last walk Charlie and I had 2 days before he died, on Monday night, we're walking through the streets of Phoenix with a bodyguard. The 2 major issues that came up that he wanted to get better at defending were the evidence for the resurrection, and then how could I convince young people about the beauty of the family to get married. Last walk we had Monday night before he was killed on Wednesday was the 2 major issues were the resurrection, and the other big issue was the family. How can we teach young people the beauty and the necessity of the family?
So 2 nights before he was murdered, Monday night, we're walking through the streets of Phoenix with a armed guard behind us, about 10 yards. And 2 of the biggest issues that we discussed were the resurrection and trying to get this generation to embrace marriage and family.
And the last walk we took was Monday night before he was murdered Wednesday, and one of the biggest issues we talked about was the resurrection.
On September 8th, after we had met during the day, he said, "Hey, let's go on a walk after dinner." So we would always walk with a armed bodyguard behind us through the streets of Phoenix, and we would just talk about whatever issues he wanted to talk about. And that night, there were 3 issues he wanted to talk about: Islam, the resurrection, and marriage and family.
Yeah, I'll try and do this without getting emotional because it had to do with you, actually. Monday night, September 8th. We would go on these long walks after dark, always with about a 300-pound armed bodyguard behind us. And there were 3 issues that we discussed. First issue was Islam. The next issue he wanted to talk about was the resurrection. The third issue, which we probably spent the most amount of time on, Allie, Charlie was trying to figure out how could he get his generation to embrace marriage and childbearing, embrace the family. He was talking about the work you're doing and how important that is to get women more desirable of marriage and family. And to be honest, he said, that can even be a problem for you to convince them. Because although you're a mom, you have a platform. 36 hours later, he was dead.
Wow.
Also, 2 nights before Charlie died, we went on one of our night walks. I went to Phoenix 4 times this summer to help him prepare for the tour. And at night, we go on these long walks through Phoenix, always with a bodyguard, an armed bodyguard behind us. Because the folks who say they're fighting for inclusion, tolerance, and diversity will not include and not tolerate you for holding a diverse view. Anyway, the 3 subjects we talked about most that night were Islam, the resurrection, and how can we get the younger generation to embrace marriage and family. And so on 4 occasions, he and I got together in Phoenix we would just sit around and talk about issues he wanted to talk about, that he wanted to be better at answering questions on campus. And sometimes it would be just him and me. Sometimes it'd be me, him, Mikey, Blake Neff, Danny Phillip. These are people in TPUSA. Yeah. When I land on the 7th, then, you know, the 8th and the 9th we could spend together. And then why don't you just come with me to the first event on the 10th? It's like, sure, we'll figure it out. I'll be there. So I was there. And the last walk we had was Monday night. The murder happened on Wednesday. And we probably walked for 90 minutes, always with a 300-pound bodyguard behind us, armed bodyguard. We'd walk around his neighborhood. And there are 3 things we talked about that night, Jack. We spent most of our time on. The first was, of course, government and Islam. He's concerned about Islam coming and imposing Sharia law on it. The second thing he wanted to talk about was the resurrection. Then the last thing we talked about, Jack, and we were doing laps on the top of his building talking about this. He was really concerned that his generation was not embracing marriage. The men were, the women were not.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm glad the men are moving in marriage's direction, but the women are not. And why are they going to listen to me?
Yeah.
And everybody out there who is a woman talking about this is a career woman.
Yeah.
They could see the mild contradiction.
Exactly.